Hello
熟悉管
YouTube
理
and
工作
welcome
很
back to
简单，
Fire Gaming Project.
我
So
就
in
是因
this
此
short
才做了
video,
这个
I'll
职
just be
位。
quickly going over some weapon options that you can give to Kirara if you are going to pull for her or if you end up getting her in the future from the standard banner. So yes, she will be a 4-star dendro sword user who will be making her debut in phase 1 of 3.7, which will be dropping basically within 24 hours from the date of publishing this video. On my time zone, it's going to drop probably in about 18 hours or so, maybe, or less, 15 to 18 hours. And other people's time zones, it may be sooner. So let's get to it. So on the
读书并
screen,
不
I'm
会
just
让
going to
人
be
变聪
using
明，
Alhaitham as
看
an
看教练院里的
example
那些家伙就知
because
道。
he's a dendro sword user. But realistically, we're just going to be in the weapons menu for the most part. So there is one weapon that I don't own currently, and that's the Summit Shaper, which is the Geo sword for Albedo's launch originally. And that's a 5-star sword, and that one basically has a similar, let me see, it has a similar passive and description to this, the Enforge, because it's from the same series as this. It's also a similar series to Memory of Dust. So basically it has a shield component. So if you, it will increase your shield strength, and when you are shielded, it will double basically or increase the damage output. So the Summit Shaper would be a good option, a 5-star option for Kirara because she has a small shield based on what we saw in the live stream preview event for 3.7, basically a week and a bit ago. So realistically, there is that option as well, especially because that sword is really, really old and it hasn't had very many reruns, I think, since, because it's not that popular, and it's no longer a so-called best in slot sword for anybody, really. So that's why it hasn't seen much, rerunning, but I can see it coming back as a, add-on weapon, let's say, on the weapon banner, where it's like the not desirable weapon option. Some of you may have it if you're older player and you have it lying around, no one's using it, then maybe you can just give it to Kirara because it might be already leveled up already. So that's one option. So speaking of Kirara, we want to say that she actually scales off of HP because, like I just said, she has a shield as well to her kit. So there is that, and I feel like with that being said, HP seems to be the go-to when it comes to shielding or healing. The other one sometimes is defense, but usually it's actually HP. So with that being said, my recommendations for the swords that are currently available already up to 3.6, so we're not including anything new that comes out after, but up to 3.6 are the Primordial Jade Cutter, which has an HP passive, which is on the screen right now. I gave this to my Alhaitham and I'm fine with it. If you happen to have an extra Alhaitham's sword, that could be an option too, but that's not really an HP specific set bonus. That's more of a crit focus weapon. But yeah, the other one is the Key of Kaj Nisut, which is Nilu's signature weapon, which I don't own. That one has an HP substat, and that one is fine too, especially if you don't own Nilu, because I can see maybe some people went for the weapon on her banners because she rerun already, but during her debut or her rerun, maybe you got the weapon. It may not have been what you wanted to get, but maybe you got the weapon and you don't have her, and then you might have that weapon lying around and you don't have another user for it. I mean, I know Cookie Shinobu could make use of it, but if you don't have anyone else using the Key of Kaji Soot, maybe you want to give it to Kirara. So there's that option as well. So now I've spoken about the two weapons I don't own and then the one that's on the screen. So then the other options, I'm going to be honest with you, based on what I can tell from the live stream, Kirara is going to be like a very mediocre or average character. And this is not trashing her, it's just that most of the 4-star characters in the game are meant to be like nice to have but not must have anymore. Like I think the early launch 4-stars were the ones that were must have, and the ones that came out after are all like nice to have optional. And that includes Kirara. So she's not going to be a must-have character for sure, in my opinion. I will still try to get one copy of her tomorrow once 3.7 goes live. Hopefully I can get her early and save wishes for the future. I no longer spend in this game at all. No more Welkin, no more Battle Pass, nothing. So for 3.6, no more Welkin for sure. And then since way before, I already stopped the Battle Pass for this. So yeah, so completely yeah, I would just say, based on what we have, I would not worry too much about giving her crit. So I would skip the Haran, I would skip the Mist Splitter. I wouldn't bother with those crit ones. Technically, Primordial is a crit weapon too, but at least the HP passive helps if you want to strengthen her shielding capability, perhaps. If you happen to have extra Freedom Sworn, maybe. Like, so Elemental Mastery and Skyward Blade for energy recharge, those are okay weapons that you can give, right? Physical damage, I would just skip altogether. Yeah, so like support weapons, these are the other 5 stars that are optional. But realistically, you wouldn't really want to give her a 5-star option unless you really, really like her or you have lots of 5 stars lying around that no one else is using. We should focus more on the 4-star options, and realistically, I mean, this weapon from one of the events earlier this year was not bad, right? With the Elemental Mastery. She is Dendro after all, you could build her for Elemental Mastery. I don't believe that she would scale with Elemental Mastery, but similar to my Kave review that I just did earlier today, Kave doesn't really scale off of Elemental Mastery either, but everyone seems to say that you should just build him for Elemental Mastery because he has, part of his kit has something to do with bloom damage and dendro cores. So, like, and then, speaking of dendro cores, Kirara throws out these little, like, green orbs. They're not really dendro cores, but they're, like, mini dendro cores is one way to put it. Or they're similar to Aloy's little ice balls, or even like the little bombs that Klee leaves behind, right? So like it's like that. So they're like miniature like dendro cores. I don't know what they're actually called, but yeah. So I don't know. Like Elemental Mastery could be her thing because she's dendro after all, and reactions is a big deal with dendro. So yeah. So anyway, so then this Tokabo Shigure could be, because this is a free event weapon that many people would have had. Now, speaking same on the Elemental Mastery vein, the Zevos Moonlight, which is a limited series gacha weapon for Sumeru series, and I don't think that many people have this, but if they do and no one else is using it, I gave it to my Milu, and I only got 1 copy, and I was way back when it launched, and I wasn't even planning to get the weapon, but I got it, so I gave it to her, but like, realistically, if you happen to have extra copies of this and no one else is using it, then yeah, it could work on Kirara as well. Okay, moving along, we would skip the Cinnabar Spindle. The Amanoma is your go-to, like, free-to-play weapon. You can craft this, and it's a good weapon. It has attack percentage, substat, and it has basically kind of like an energy mechanic for the passive. So it's not bad. It allows her, if you put on Kirara, it will allow her to do her burst more often, so that's an option as well. Another, well, I would just say that only older players would have this, the Festering Desire. This came like way, way back, like in 1.2, and this is a really solid weapon, but I don't think many players will have it, so I'm going to kind of skip over this, but yeah, it's a good weapon to have, and if no one else is using it, you can give it to her, because it has energy recharge, substat, and the passive is pretty decent. The Black Sword, I don't think that the Battle Pass weapons are any use anymore. I mean, I say that, and I'm going to put a big caveat here. They're useful for newer players, but I think if you are a veteran player and you have like a big roster of weapons or a lot of weapons like I do, you may not even be using these weapons. Look, no one's even using this now on my roster, so it's just sitting there. So yeah, that's the thing. And similarly, the Black Cliff, I used to recommend these from the Paimon shop. I no longer would say that they're viable anymore because not many people need them anymore. In the earlier to mid, even the early part of the late game, maybe even up to like a year ago. But I think that a lot of times these things are now, not that they're power crept or anything, but I think that they're just other options now that you don't even need to, unless you have nothing to do with your star glitters, then you can, yeah, definitely go for this. But again, for Kirara, I don't think crits are her build anyway. Iron Sting, another craftable that's solid. The passive is easy. It's very easy. There's no stacking in mechanic at all. There is stacking, sorry. They're max 2 stacks, but like there's no like thing where you have to like do it to make it stack, right? It just deals damage and then it can stack up to 2 times because it's like basically over 6 seconds, so then yeah, that's all that it is. Like it's a very straightforward thing, whereas other things are more complicated. You have to like do different like skills or attacks in order to stack, but this one stacks just simply just by using it. Prototype Rancor, I mean, I would just skip the physical damage bonus unless you want to build her that way, so I'm going to skip it. Just like how I skipped the Aquila above. Sacrificial Sword, this is only good if you plan to proc her elemental skill twice, and based on what we saw on the preview live stream, I don't think that her elemental skill does much. I think she does like a swipe, or is it a kick? Or both, right, with her cat foot or her cat claw, right? I mean, yeah, sure, you can swipe twice with this, and sure, it's not a bad option. I mean, that's okay, you can swipe twice with it. I don't know how strong that move is, but you can swipe twice with this, sure. The flute is an okay placeholder weapon for early game. It's not a great weapon, I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't think that you're going to be using her normal or her charge attacks much, so I don't really recommend this. And Favonius is your go-to like general placeholder sword. It's energy recharge, and the only thing is you have to build her for crit in order to get the passive to proc often, so that's the other issue. You may not want to build her for crit because she doesn't need it, unless you want to build her that way, right? For me, I feel like she's just going to be a mediocre average character who's just going to be cute, of course, great personality, great storyline perhaps. She's not going to really do much damage, so I don't really see, even if you build her up with all the crit and stuff in the world, I don't think she's going to do much for you. So I wouldn't even bother with this. So in that sense, maybe Sacrificial is an easier sword to give because it's energy recharge and you just get 2 swipes of her skill instead. Sapwood Blade, this one's on my thumbnail for this video, and I think this is an okay choice here, only because it's energy recharge, and it has a passive that's related to dendro related reactions, and she's obviously dendro, and she's a sword user, and this is craftable. So I think this is not a horrible option. It's not going to be the best option, but I don't know that there's anything better. So I think that this is okay for her. This event weapon from the Kazuha storyline, this weapon is okay, but again, you're not going to be using her to do normal charge or plunging attacks. Let's be real here, so I'm going to skip that. Landsword doesn't apply to Dendro, so let's just skip it. Unless you put her in a fully Pyro or Electro team, I don't think you are going to. Yeah, and then I tried to look for 3 stars that have HP scaling or something similar, and I don't think any of them do. And of course, these 3 stars were released way before, so their descriptions don't include anything related to Dendro, right? So that's why these ones like are Hydra and Cryo, which have nothing to do with her. I mean, the Skyrider sword is a very universal sword, so if you have nothing better to do, better to give her, the Skyrider sword is actually not horrible, right? You can get her energy up, and you can give her elemental burst, and extra attack and all that. So this is not a bad sword. Don't sleep on this. This is still a pretty good 3-star weapon. And actually, now that I'm talking out loud and saying this, I might give this to her for my Kirara when I get her. It's either this or I'm going to give her the Sapwood Blade, actually. Personally, I probably might give her the Sapwood Blade only because it is a 4-star over the 5-star, and technically it is Dendro related and no one else is using it. So maybe I'll just give her the Sapwood Blade. I think that's probably what I'm likely going to do. Yeah, and then all the other 3 stars below have nothing to do with, you know, HP or anything like that. So realistically, that's where I'm sitting at. So yeah, just to summarize now, just because I went through a lot of the weapons, if you are to give her a 5-star option, if you really have to, I would suggest the Primordial Jade Cutter, or the Kiev Kashni Suit, or the Summit Shaper. If you're going for like those. If not, then of course, if you have extra copies of like a Freedom Sworn or a Skyward Blade, then those are your other options. So she has lots of options. She's very flexible. For the 4-star options, just to summarize, like you can go, I'm just gonna, instead of going over all the weapons, I'm just gonna say you can go for Elemental Mastery or Energy Recharge. Elemental Mastery is if you plan to use her more often to do more reaction stuff on the field with her Dendro. But if not, then I think Energy Recharge is totally fine, and that way you can do her burst more often. Her burst is the one where I believe she drops the little mini Dendro core things that I talked about. So that could be the option to go with. Of course, go with what you have available, and I don't recommend spending for her or farming too much for her. And I don't think that she's going to be an on-field character very much. I think she's more like a swap. But you never know, you might use her on field, I don't know, because she doesn't like heal or anything like that. I don't think she provides anything else other than just being on field. She'll be like a Kave. Kave is unique in his own way, but it's not like you need him for anything else either. So I don't think you need her for anything else either. So I don't feel like you need to give her like anything extra special either. With that being said, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and what you're going to give your Kirara, or if you're just going to skip her altogether. Just to summarize, I am going to give her probably the Sapwood Blade, but otherwise, the Skyrider sword is a solid option, and same with the Sacrificial sword as well. I think those are great options. And then, of course, failing all of that, then Amenoma is a very good placeholder, and same with Favonius as well. Alright, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys